Hey, so today I want to show how to do a Ninja Turtle head sculpt, just something super simple. What I have here are a couple different scans from 3D models of the original 80s, 90s figures that were on a website called Cults 3D. And so what helps with having this original pieces is that you already know kind of like the scale you want to be in and how big, everything like that, because these scans are made, one-to-one from whatever they were scanned at. So here is a head that I sculpted kind of from scratch, and I'm just going to show you how to kind of do one of your own. This program is super intuitive. Don't feel intimidated by the interface. They have added a lot of things, but overall, this program is amazing. We're going to add a primitive sphere. You can see we started right here. We're going to use the gizmo tool. The outer circle always increases your size of your primitive. So right now, if we do front-facing view, we can also make sure that we are locked on orthographically. If you're in the camera view, orthographic is good whenever you're trying to make like cuts to things or anything like that. You want it to be facing straight on from whatever direction. So we're going to go ahead and validate that sphere. I'm just going to kind of match it up with one of my original ones just to see like how we're looking as far as size goes. That's pretty good. So let's undo that, move this back over where it was. The size is pretty good. Let's go ahead and smash this down a little bit to kind of become like the lower part of his head. And we can also just use this exact same sphere and clone it to become the top. Maybe this one we'll take and bring it in this way and this way to kind of make his head. You can always zoom in with your 2 fingers. That's pretty easy. Bring this back a little bit. All right, that's pretty good start now. If we want to just merge these two together, we'll just select both of them and click voxel merge, and we're going to bring that up just a little bit. The trick is to not bring your size up too early on, because you're just kind of blocking out details right now, and you don't want to make this file like huge. Right now we can see we're already at 1.7 million vertices. Well, that's mainly because of this file here. I have like loads and loads of different primitives. In fact, every one of his teeth is a different primitive that I kind of manipulated each one. But there's actually a faster way to do teeth that I just learned, and I'll show you how to do that. So we merged these two together. Now let's just name this so we don't get confused in our interface here. We're just going to call this new turtle head. All right, so now that this is all one unit, we can collapse this other one that I made just to get it out of our way. So we have this. It's good to stay organized. Now let's just play around with like our clay tool right here. So with the clay tool, you can add, you can subtract, you can add. The default is add. If you want to do the opposite of whatever that tool does, you'd click subtract. So let's say we know his nose is going to be a little bit bigger, right? And right now I have symmetry on. That's another thing to pay attention to. If you ever want to turn that off, you can go up here you can see the symmetry symbol. It says enabled, which is fine for right now. But as you get further on, you're going to want the details not to all be the same everywhere. But let's just bring up his nose a little bit right here, right? Now you're going to take and you're going to smooth it. And we can actually remesh this at a little bit lower level for this early on. So if you go to voxel remesh, let's just bring that down. You can see the wireframe right there, how many polygons this is. And early on, you really don't need to be that large, and it's easier to smooth out things when it's a lower resolution, and I can kind of blend the top pieces that I already joined together like that. So I would recommend using separate primitives for almost everything, though. Obviously his head shape is just kind of our basic piece we've got joined together, but we can also take and add in, let's say, a cylinder for his bandana. So everything is kind of centered on the origin where we have it right now, which is good, but we're going to bring this up until we actually see it. You can see it's there now. The green arrow is going to compress it vertically. Okay, we're going to shrink that down just a little bit. Now that we got it kind of roughly the way we want it to look, we're going to hit validate. So now if I use the smooth tool right now, you'll notice because this is a very low resolution, it's going to do like incredible changes to it. Now if I was to take and undo that by double tapping, and I went and did a voxel remesh, which is in the 3 squares here, and remeshed it, maybe you can see the wireframe. I'm going to bring that up just a little bit to like 160 and remesh it. Now we'll smooth it now. Now you can see it doesn't affect it as drastically, and it actually makes it look a lot cleaner. And it kind of gets rid of all the ugly spots. So now we obviously want to we have other tools we can use to kind of manipulate this. Make sure you have the right, we're going to rename this bandana. Okay, so now we're going to take and pull up kind of like where the eyes would be. We don't have symmetry on, but we should probably have it for this part. We're going to put it on. We're going to bring it up just a little bit. Now we're going to take the clay tool and kind of remove some spots where the eyes would go, okay? So let's subtract, and let's put a spot where the eyes are going to be at. Let's smooth that. Now we're going to add in a couple eyes as separate primitives also. So we're going to go to eyes, our spheres. We're going to bring in, and this is the option we're going to use to be able to get 2 eyes. We're going to hit mirror. Okay, so we're going to have to increase the size of these first. But with mirror selected, you're going to see, as we select mirror, we're going to have 2 eyes. We're going to bring these down, bring these over. And let's just kind of widen them just a little bit, compress them down just a little bit. Validate. Let's select this. On whichever one you have selected, it's going to be, so obviously these are still mirrored and they're not joined yet. But we could click validate, and then we could uninstance these so there'll be 2 separate eyes, and we can mess with both of them now if we want to. But we're just going to leave the eyes alone. Those should be fine the way they are. The bandana, we can use the drag tool, right? So this tool is good for just kind of manipulating. You can also adjust the radius and just try it in different sizes. You can see if I do that, it does way more. And of course, the intensity of how strong moving it is, and how many different polygons you're affecting is strictly based on what size your radius is. So you might want to take and smooth some after moving around. You can also just turn on the wireframe by clicking this here, and you can see how many polygons we have. We still are not looking, our bandana isn't really in the best spot here. We'll make sure we have that selected, and we're going to drag this out. Increase the size of our radius and drag that out so it actually covers all of our head there. And we don't really quite have a decent looking mouth yet. We need to kind of bring out his head just a little bit, and his beak just a little more. Now you can turn this wireframe off. I'm just showing you how many polygons there are. So if you were to take and hit voxel remesh, you'll see how, let's just show just for a quick example. If you were to like mess this up, right, it's kind of looking all over the place. If I was to hit voxel remesh, it's going to kind of recorrect everything and kind of recorrect your mesh, but we're going to undo both of that. We didn't mean to do that. So I'm just showing you. So we can turn off this wireframe. We have clay, and we're going to remove an area where his mouth's going to be, right? And we're going to smooth that afterwards. We're going to pull out we're going to use the drag tool. It's one of my favorite tools. We're going to drag out his nose a little bit again. Pull this in a little bit. Smooth it out again. Now, if you want to add like the little bandana knot, we could use another primitive for that. We're going to go to add sphere. We're going to move it back. We're going to increase the size. And we already have the knot going here. Let's validate that, and then we can start messing around with this with the drag tool or the move tool. Kind of pull it to make it look a little less perfect. Make sure that symmetry is not on, because you want it to look kind of more like an organic thing. Oops, make sure I have the right part selected. If you ever get deselected, just reselect it. Now for the bandana, you're going to use the tube tool. This is pretty easy. You can take and make sure you're set to curve here, and then you're going to draw out a bandana, and you can increase this with the little radius tool here. Make sure you're always panning around. One finger is going to help you pan. All right. And then let's actually take with the gizmo tool and flatten this. You can see how now it makes it look more like an actual ribbon or bandana. We'll validate this, and we're still going to mess around with it. We're going to voxel remesh it, which is always a good idea after you've validated something, to be able to make it so the topology will increase just a little bit. Now we can kind of look around from different angles. We can increase how much of it it's affecting, but we can make it look like it's kind of like blown in the wind. You see how that looks kind of cruddy right there? We can either hit the smooth tool on that and see if we can just, if we smooth it, and it's going to look a little bit better. Okay, so we want to add some teeth, right? Let's make one tooth. That's all you have to do. So we're going to put in a box, primitive. We're going to click the gizmo, because right now it's basically in the center, right beneath our character. We're going to bring it out to the front. Let's kind of zoom in, and let's see what is a good size for our tooth. Let's flatten it a little bit. Let's bring it back. Now, a little bit bigger than that. Let's validate that. Now that we have it, let's take the flatten tool and kind of knock off some of the sharp edges of this tooth. Make it look a little less perfect. Voxel remesh it. Hit the smooth button. Let's smooth out the tooth here. Now that we have that, let's rename this tooth. Okay, now we're going to go to add. And this is that new tool I love, the curve tool. But first, before we do that, let's pay attention to something. Let's go to the gizmo. You see how this green is facing this way? This is the direction our curve is going to go. So we want to rotate our pivot. We're going to click pivot. We're going to make sure our line isn't turned on. Make sure you're selected to change our pivot. Snap it to 90. And let's rotate it to the right. Now our curve tool is going to follow that green axis. We'll click done. Done. Now let's go to add that curve. All right, now we have the curve tool. You're going to hit select, and now you're basically just like the tube tool. You have basically our teeth. Now let's fill in how many teeth we want. You can kind of just move this around. Obviously, this isn't perfect. Oops. Every time you click, you can add a point to kind of curve from. Here we're looking kind of like our teeth are way off in the distance here. Got some pretty big gaps going on there, so let's increase the amount of teeth that he has. Easier sometimes to look at it from above, so you can kind of see that angle that you're trying to make to make it follow his mouth. And we can take the gizmo tool and just move all of them up. And then we can readjust again. If we hit the curve back, we can kind of see where we're at. And let's hide all these other things we're not using, just so we're kind of focused on what we're doing. And that needs to come out a little more. Let's do one more tooth there. Oh, he's looking a little gangly there. Let's adjust that a little. Now, if we want to, after we get the teeth, we can kind of rearrange how the head goes around, and we could take the crease tool and we can kind of pull back some stuff to make his gums show a little more, and always voxel remesh. That helps to just like recreate. I think there's even a shortcut for it down here. You can just hit voxel remesh, and whatever you were currently at, it'll just do it to the same amount. So if we got it at 150, if you hit that, it should just automatically remesh. And that's just correcting your polygons, because they do get distorted as you're pulling on them and carving into them. Now, we're super basic still. I mean, there's nothing too complex about what we're doing right now. All these tools are pretty easy to use. We're going to smooth out this a little bit. Let's voxel remesh it a little bit higher level now. Remesh. And let's smooth. Voxel remeshing and smoothing. That's really the only two things you really need to remember to do. All right. So basically our tooth, we could pretty much do the exact same thing, but we'd have to rotate our tooth over if we want to be able to do it. Make the bottom teeth. Yeah, so let's just take that tooth from this curve and let's clone it. Let's take it out of that curve and set it by itself. Now let's move it and let's rotate it around. Now the green axis is which way it's going to go. When we set it to the curve, let's kind of get it roughly in place where we want it, but wherever that green points is where this curve is going to become for his teeth. All right, so let's go ahead and click Add Curve. Now that we have it, we can go and come over to the other side. Let's look at it from above. It'll be a lot easier to do this. It'll give us a rough idea what we're supposed to be, and then we'll add in a certain amount of teeth. We'll bring them down. Yeah, it looks like our turtle's really cheesing, huh? You see his smile. Let's take our gizmo and kind of rotate. Let's align with the entire project, and let's tip his teeth down just a little bit and back up. We're still going to have to make some adjustments. Not really looking perfect yet. You got to kind of look at things from different angles to really get what you're trying to achieve. And then we're going to take let's see here, back to our main body here. And let's crease that out and get it to show his teeth. And we'll smooth it. Take the crease tool, carving out some more. And I mean, obviously you can go a lot more in depth and a lot more in detail. I'm just trying to show you a basic way how to make something, and we haven't even been sculpting for more than about 20 minutes now. Less than 20 minutes, you can have something pretty much ready to go where you could print this. Let's take the crease tool and pull that back just a little bit. You want to color it? That's pretty easy too. You just select your primitive, you click paint, reduce metalness, reduce roughness. So let's find us a green. I always think it's funny how obviously the turtles have different colors. Like that's kind of like a raft color there. So we could do raft. Let's hit paint all. We could select our bandana. Let's choose a red color. Your paint's going to look better if you remesh at a higher level, which I haven't currently, but our bandana tail. We still need to, we can actually duplicate that. Now that we've cloned it, we can move it over, we can rotate it some. Obviously, we can manipulate these more, but let's just go in and get them painted just so we can have a finished product here. Let's see here, paint all. Select each shape. We're going to select here. Paint all. And his teeth and eyes are usually white anyways, so that's pretty much it. I mean, obviously we can clean it up and make it look a little bit better than that, but I don't plan to take this to its final look. In this video, I'm just trying to give you a basic idea of how you can make and you can turn off symmetry now. If you want to like give him like a little more of an expression on one side than the other and bring his nose down a little bit. Crease that back. You can make one side a little more of a grimace, one side a little bit less. See if I can decrease that radius a little bit. Well, I'm just making it look bad here. I'm just trying to get like a really. Let's take the clay tool and kind of fill in here a little bit. We're on subtractants. Smooth it back out. Let's smooth that again. I always had a little bit more of a beak, you know, and I just remember drawing them as a kid. This looks actually pretty bad. I'd have to spend a lot more time messing with this to make it look like the way I wanted it to look, but just to block something out and have something, it does not take that long. I'm just using mostly just the same tools over and over again. The drag tool, I like the drag tool. You can kind of adjust the different sizes and it'll act differently. We'll crease back away our stuff so we can see. I mean, it's not the best turtle head I've ever sculpted, but I mean, it's just to show you this program is pretty easy to use. You can adjust his eyes a little bit if you wanted to. You can select both of them. Make his eyes a little bit bigger. Pull them back a little bit. Tip them out. You'd have to do them one at a time. But yeah, it's not a hard program to do something. This one, obviously, I spent a little bit more time making. I spent more time, you know, with his gums, and I individually made each tooth, so that's another thing. After you've validated these curves, you can hit validate and you can uninstance, and now you can go through and you can make each tooth a little bit different. You could put a crease in it. You could smooth that back out. You could take the drag tool and kind of click on this one and pull one down just a little bit, make it look slightly different. That one, you could curve it, pull it out. You can see you can make them look different than the others. And that's how you get something that looks a little more interesting like that. But yeah, give it a try. This program is a lot of fun, and they have made it super user-friendly compared to Blender, ZBrush, Mesh Mixer, any of those other programs. This is just a $15 app, and it's honestly one of the best apps I've ever used. I'll take care.